to order the Middleton Affordable Housing Trust Committee. Today is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. It is 5:09 p.m. Just a reminder for everybody in the room and those that are on camera that this meeting is being recorded. Business items for the Affordable Housing Trust we will take after the presentation and training session we're doing today. So I just asked for the Affordable Housing Trust members to know that we'll get to that after the end of the training on inclusionary zoning concepts. But with us, we have some folks here in the audience that are representing different groups in town, as well as folks here at the table. So just for our guest on the camera this evening, if we could each just go around and introduce themselves. My name is Brian Crester. I am the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, but I also sit as a member of the Housing Trust as the representative from the Select Board.
And I am Maria Pecos-Hansis. I am serving as being on the Housing Authority Board and appointed here for the Affordable Housing Trust.
I'm Jason Bernhard. I am on Affordable Housing Trust and also vice chair of the Planning Board.
Richard Gregorio, the treasurer of the Affordable Housing Trust and appointee by the Finance Committee.
Uman Lerman Creehey, member of the Affordable Housing Trust and chair.
Clerk.
I'm
Clerk,
sorry,
clerk.
not chair. Clerk.
I hear you.
Clerk.
I'm John Erickson, member of the Finance Committee and the Master Plan Committee.
And Anna Bury-Carmer, town planner. I would love it if we could also, the folks in the audience.
We have a few folks in the crowd this evening. We have our newest member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and our, well, I'll lead you to.
NICDRC. Costa Prontakis, Select Board and Community Preservation Committee.
And I'm Annie Wilton on the Master Plan Committee.
Jackie Bresnahan, Assistant Town Administrator, HR Director.
And acting IT director here this evening.
I'm actually the IT czar, according to Administrator Seltzback.
Good. Well, thank you. And I'm going to turn this over to you. I know you've been working to bring some education components, not just to this committee, but to many of the other committees in town. So I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, let me set the stage a little bit. Where we're coming from is, and I did fill in our speaker a little bit on where we're coming from, but just so everyone's at the same page. The Affordable Housing Trust completed their strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, last year. And as part of that plan, there was a focus on policy and advocacy, and the trust is in a really good position to be advocating for affordable housing in the town. And so as part of their mission and work is really to understand how to best do that, looking at what's available in the state and looking at what makes the most sense for the town. And so just kind of with that in mind, there's a lot of background I don't want to get into too much because I think our conversation will go there. But I invited Katie Lacey here tonight, and I want to introduce Katie. She's a senior planner at Mass Housing Partnership and has extensive experience in housing policy in Massachusetts. Her specific expertise, little background there, is in supporting the development of affordable housing through local initiatives and regulatory and policy changes. So welcome to our meeting, Katie. Do you want to take it from here?
Sure. My name's Katie Lacey. I go by Katie. I'm envious that the trust got all those other board members. I had sort of Anna's job for many years with another municipality, and I supported the trust, and they always were kind of on their own. And it's great that you have a selectman on the board and other board members interested, and anyway, I approve. I'm going to talk a little bit. I do have a presentation, but I'm hoping we can just keep this as a conversation after that. I do have a little presentation on inclusionary zoning that's somewhat high level, but happy to support you guys if you want to proceed with that. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll see if this works. Okay. I always get to this point and then I'm like, slideshow. Okay, hold on.
You
Here we
do,
go. All righty. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just walk through this quickly and then we can talk. So I'm going to talk a little bit about inclusionary zoning, and then I'm going to talk about local action units, which there's going to be a lot of alphabet soup here, so make sure you interject and say, what does that mean? So just quickly, we're MHM with MHP, and we work with communities to create policy and financing solutions to provide more affordable housing. We have a Center for Housing Data. We have the Community Assistance Division, which is my team that works with communities. At our heart, we are a lending agency. We subsidize lots and lots of permanent rental affordable housing. So in effect, we're kind of like mass housing or a bank almost. And then we have a very wonderful first-time homebuyer program called the One Mortgage Program, which is very affordable for first-time homebuyers and has done thousands and thousands of loans. So I guess I was asked to talk today about strategies to build more affordable housing in Middleton. And, you know, with a focus on inclusionary zoning as one that seemed promising to you guys. So I did just want to review, this is your subsidized housing inventory. Anna mentioned building, and I looked at your housing production plan, that building your subsidized housing inventory was a goal. So this is where you're at now, which is 5.10%, which is not so bad. You have a variety of different types of projects with units in them that count towards the subsidized housing inventory. Some of these are public housing, either local housing authority project that looks like Orchard Circle, maybe. You guys can chime in.
Yeah, Orchard Circle, Orchard Circle is
Yeah.
a state program, right?
State
Yeah,
of,
right.
okay, great.
that's, no,
And
Orchard
then
Circle
you
is
have some DDS units and then a few,
Oakland is state.
Oh, yeah.
couple 40Bs. So before we talk about that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what is affordable, because this is hard for a lot of communities to swallow because the numbers can be a little out of whack. Middleton is in the greater Boston, HUD, fair market rent area. So that is a long way of saying that what is determined eligible for the subsidized housing inventory has to be, it's housing for people with incomes 80% median income or lower. And you can see there on the bottom that the median income in the greater Boston area is a whopping $149,900. And 80% median income for, let's just take a family of four, is $130,250. And I say this by way of, this is not low income housing. If that is, if getting things on the SHI is your concern, if you can go and see above, very low is, gets a little lower, and extremely low, which is 30% is even lower. But in terms of what rents are right now, and I'm sorry the top column got cut off, but let's see, Studio 1,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
2,
Just say got it, the red box.
Can you hit
Yeah.
got it for us so we can?
Actually, Katie, what's going on? I think, are you using two screens?
Yeah, you got to get rid of the got it.
So when you project a PowerPoint with two screens,
I'm not doing it,
what we're seeing is not, we're actually seeing like a split screen. So
Ooh.
if you move the actual PowerPoint over to a different screen, are you using?
Hold on. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Hold on.
And get rid of the got it.
Okay, here we go. So what I'm gonna do is, that is so weird.
Yeah, it's a Teams PowerPoint thing. It happens to me all the time.
Yes. So I do not like Teams anymore.
Okay, we're doing slideshow. What are you seeing now?
Well, I see you now. This
We
is
see you.
Just you.
just you. So if you,
Me?
yeah,
So
so if
you'll
you
need to
share it,
share.
but you may have to move it to a different screen. Slide it over.
I think she was in the notes view instead of.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second, see if we can do this again. I really am sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So you can't see the presentation?
No,
No,
not
all
yet.
we
We're
see is
seeing
you.
We did see a split screen before.
Yeah, we were seeing the notes view before.
Okay, now, do you see anything?
No.
No, we see you.
Okay, let's try again. You'd think we'd learn, right? Okay. It says PowerPoint Live. Let's see if we can do this.
That's
How about
it.
that?
Perfect.
Great. Okay, and we want no notes, so we want,
Keep it just like it is and slide through to your next
Okay.
slides.
you don't, wait, so are you seeing all the underneath stuff? or
Nope,
just the-
nope.
the-
We see the full slide.
Love it. Oh my God, I've learned a new trick from you guys. Okay, so I'll just show you, but this you're not seeing the notes on the side?
No, we're not.
Bizarro. Okay, so this is your subsidized housing inventory. We went through that. And then we're looking at what is big A, affordable. And the only reason I show this is to show that a 3-bedroom apartment, even at 80% is close to $3,000 a month. And we do get a lot of people saying, that's not affordable. And part of the issue is that this is sort of established by HUD. You can make it lower, but this is what qualifies as affordable housing. So now I'm gonna just go through what is inclusionary zoning. So it's basically provisions that incentivize or require that a certain percentage of homes in a development be affordable to household incomes at a certain level. It's a very popular tool for getting the private market to subsidize affordable housing. So unlike a state-funded affordable housing or federally funded, you're basically saying, private market, you deal with this, you provide this. It has been upheld by the courts, though applicability to single-family subdivisions, I think is really, really highly questionable and is being challenged. And the reason I have the picture of those eggs there is because if you sort of step back and think about it, it is kind of, the way developers see it is if you went into the store and said, I want a dozen eggs, please only charge me half price for 3 of them, I'll pay full price for the rest. They'd say, no thanks, and they wouldn't sell it to you. So basically you're passing the cost on to a private developer. Developer can make a ton of money, but the smaller developers that do the scale of housing that a town like Middleton might be interested in, they're operating kind of on the margin, believe it or not. They're not typically laughing all the way to the bank. Some of them are, but not all of them. So just to walk through And then, other people do mandatory, like everything in this town that ever gets built from now on, 10% has to be affordable. The third thing is the minimum size threshold. So that's a fancy way of saying, do we want this to kick in at developments starting at 5 acres, 5 units, 6 units, 10 units, 12 units? And that is going to be sort of a balancing act based on the costs. But, something to think about. And then again, affordability, right? How much do you want it to be? 10%? In a 40B, it's 25%. The affordability level, do you want it priced at 80% area median income, 30% area median income? And then the duration of the affordability requirement. And most communities want that in perpetuity, right? Like once you create it, you want it to be an affordable unit that would pass to another eligible household. Let's see where we're at.
Katie, could I ask a couple of questions on this slide?
Of course.
So as it relates to payment in lieu, and you're saying that it's becoming, with the advent and expansion of affordable housing trusts in cities and towns, what are you seeing as like an average, if there even is an average, payment?
There is not.
Okay.
It's all over the map, and we get asked this all the time. And actually, I've noticed communities spend a huge amount of time worrying about this, what that number is. And I wish I could say, oh, it's, some people do, it's the 80% of the cost of a house. Some people just say $200,000. I wish there was a standard, but there isn't. We do have a list of what communities are doing right now that I can share with you. It's not complete though.
Okay.
Anyway, so there you have it. Some people look up the means, what is the average cost? You have to kind of look at what would the house sell it as a market rate and then discount that by the fact that it's going to be a lower cost unit. We can work on that, but there's no standard.
And
So,
a
go ahead.
couple other questions. So if a unit is kept affordability for either in perpetuity for a certain timeline, we have some units in town that are like that are within some of our 55 and older developed communities where there's a certain number of units there that fall into that criteria. And when those units come back up for sale, there's a process that, what was the old DHCD, now it's EOHL.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with it.
So is that usually the process that is managed, or are you seeing more cities and towns through their affordable housing trust playing that role in determining how that unit gets valued and resold?
No, the Affordable Housing Trust and the municipality, so it's a little complicated, and I'm going to get to that, but a local trust almost never manages that. It has to be part, if you want the units on the subsidized housing inventory, EOHLC, I call it HLC, is quite strict about who is doing that monitoring. It is true that I'm going to get into this in a minute, for local action units, the municipality is responsible for that, but typically there's a third party, and I talked to Anna about this. A really great tool is there are these regional affordable housing agencies. There's one in Reading that I think Middleton is joining, if there's anyone in the room that knows about this.
No, not that I know of or heard of, and I'm seeing a lot of nods in the room.
You want to I'm not saying this in a bad way, but you don't want local boards doing that process because it's dicey, it's complicated. There's a lottery process, there's an affirmative fair housing marketing process, and then there's an eligibility review. So what communities do is they either like honestly, with rental units, the property manager does that. With homeownership units, they're obligated to hire a monitoring agent before they get approved by the state. And that monitoring agent, and you may have heard of some of these, like Beth Rust, it's a complicated process, but no,
Okay.
typically a third party does it. And they keep in touch with the town. I mean, usually it's a relationship.
So Katie, this is Jackie. So typically, we do have our planner keeping an eye on our SHI, but then for any local action units, we're having somebody like a Harbor Light or even a Habitat run the process like you're talking about. I think those are just some local examples of the types of organizations that you're mentioning that we see in our neck of the woods.
Yeah, no, I always encourage someone in the town to keep track of it. I think that sounds like a perfect solution.
Okay. And the one last question I have before, I know there's some other questions in the room. In an inclusionary zoning, and this may be further in your presentation, but I would assume the unit or the building that is included as affordable has to be similar size as the rest of the development. So it can't be a development of 3,000 square foot homes and it's a 900 square foot home that's built. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Within a certain parameter? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Costa?
Since inclusionary zoning drives up the cost of private development, if the criteria is too stringent, you will depress the creation of any type of housing. So, are there statistics of communities that have adopted inclusionary zoning and what their housing production was the 5 years before they adopted and the first 5 years of adoption?
I'm going to try to get through this presentation and then, because that's a big question.
Good question.
So if I could just sort
Yeah,
of work my way through, is that okay?
Yeah, please.
But we do kind of hit on that. That is an excellent question. So what I want to tell you is that just about some lessons learned before you launch into this. So MHP was hired, we worked with a national organization called Grounded Solution that was doing this massive nationwide study of inclusionary zoning. They were doing the whole thing, but they got to Massachusetts and one other state, and they were like, what? You have 352 municipalities? We each with their own zoning? We can't possibly do that. So they engaged us. These are very rough, high-level numbers. But we worked on this for a long time between 2018 and 2020. And the upshot was lots of communities, this number is much higher than 140 now, have some form of inclusionary zoning. Roughly 10,000 units have been created, but that was self-reported. I don't put much into that data. The big takeaway we found, in fact, we have more inclusionary zoning programs here than any other state in the US. But only 60% of the communities with some form of inclusionary zoning have created one affordable unit. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is so. Whereas that's only true in 12% of other states, they all typically use it and produce quite a bit. So this is one takeaway. And then just to talk a little bit about the lessons we learned, and I just want you to think about this before you get started, is inclusionary zoning really, this is sort of like a basic, only creates affordable units where units are being created. So if you have some development going on, you're going to get the affordable units. If nothing's going on, you're not going to get them. And it sounds self-evident, but a lot of communities, I've worked with a lot of communities that say, okay, so we're going to require 10%, we'll stay ahead of our SHI, of the 40B thing, and it really depends if stuff is getting built. It really works best when tailored to the specific community. And I'm telling you this because the other call we get a lot is, could you just send me some sample bylaws and we'll pick and choose from those. And as you know, some communities have sewer, some don't. They all have really different zoning requirements. Some allow multifamily, some don't. Some have acre lots, some have 2-acre lots, some have half-acre, So it's not like you kind of do have to tailor it a bit. It works for municipality when it's feasible for the developer. That's just the truth. It works best with strong affordability restrictions when you guys know exactly who's going to be in charge of monitoring, tracking, and compliance. So it sounds like you're on top of that. And then I do just want to point out, it's a super useful tool, but it is not going to stop 40B. It's one tool that a community has. It rarely keeps up with your denominator, but it's an important tool, and it's one of the best ones we have. So I'm a big fan. So let's just see. So let's just talk a little bit about feasibility. As you know, prices in Middleton are really high. They're high everywhere. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is. And Middleton's not alone, but part of it is that your dimensional requirements are significant. You have a lot of acre lots, 2,000 acre lots, and just given the cost of land, that's going to escalate. It's not just the only reason. Housing prices are really high right now for a whole lot of reasons. One of the big ones is, interest rates. I'm no economist, but, materials, interest rates. But one of the big ones is that you have pretty restrictive zoning because you value whatever development pattern you have in your town. And that just is. It's not a judgment. It's just the way it is. I will say that your single family lots are big. The typical single family lot, which is an acre, of which you require, is indeed the size of a football field. And one thing I do think you may want to reflect on is the parts of your community that you really like, the historical parts. Typically, those lots are non-conforming. They're significantly smaller than an acre. And what happened is most communities in Massachusetts, including where I live, upzoned dramatically in the 1970s. So they allowed 1/4-acre lots, 10,000 square foot lots, whatever, and they all went up for a variety of reasons. We don't need to go into that. Then I'm just going to talk a little bit, again, I hope this doesn't seem condescending, but basically the way it works is the income has to be bigger than the cost, right? And the tools that a community has through their zoning to enable greater affordability is through cost offsets. And those are able to through a couple ways. You could be, you could do a density bonus, say, okay, we only allow 1 unit per acre, but if you're going to do affordable, we'll allow 4 units an acre or something like that. That's important. The other one is through, oops. There we go. And the other big one is, can you help them reduce the cost of the project? So reduce parking requirements, fee waivers. This is hard for a town, but like for a decent sized developer, building permit fees are big. It's a lot of money. Some communities are doing tax relief for the affordable units. Again, anyway, well, just quickly, I just want to show you a few, because what I want to show you, these are just some samples. So this is Chestnut Gardens in Hingham, where I used to work. This is not that bad a scale. It's only 2 affordable units in this whole development, but they did it through their open space residential development bylaw, which I see Middleton has on the books. So they said, hey, you can add a few more units if 30% of those are affordable. This is in Danvers. This is a top of the shop type of thing, which is very popular with a lot of communities for their downtown area. This is 10 units of rental housing with 1 affordable unit. So Danvers has a 12.5%. Hold on. This weather alert keeps coming on my screen. Oh, boy.
Well, it's not showing here, so.
Yeah. Also, it's not even, it's gonna snow like an inch. Our schools are closed already. This is in Maynard. This is 26 apartments, 7 are affordable. That's because they have in their zoning a 20% requirement in certain districts. But again, this is, you know, that's 26 units, and in Middleton, you may say that's bigger than we want to deal with. This is in Amherst. This is a small condominium development, 22 units. It has 3 inclusionary affordable units. So I'm really sorry this is going on so long. I want to just get back to some nuts and bolts. So affordable, these units that you're going to be creating, it's always important to think at the end, how do they get on the SHI? What are they? And so I want to say that the units you'll be creating through inclusionary zoning can be put on the SHI, so they're good things, but they're approved through the local action units program, which is part of the LIP program. There's a lot of acronyms. But, you know, ultimately, it's really important to think they're homes, right? They're homes for people that might live in your community, that might move to your community. And so I get a little uncomfortable when people keep talking about units as a way to sort of, you know, chalk up their affordable housing. Come on. Okay, this is just really briefly, and I sent Anna a kind of overview of this. We can talk again about what is a local action unit. So it has to be approved by the state. I say this because it's complicated. So if you pass inclusionary zoning, you have to be prepared to deal with all this. It has to meet the design and construction standards that are set forth in the 40B guidelines. It's subject to income and cost restrictions, as you know. There has to be an approved affirmative fair housing marketing plan and lottery. It's subject to a regulatory agreement, and ongoing monitoring technically is the municipality's responsibility, in that the municipality needs to know it's happening. Yet at the same time, HLC makes it very difficult for the municipality itself to monitor it. So again, no judgment, that's just the way it is. Other types of local action units that can be added to the SHI. So basically, in the world of subsidized housing, you either have 40B, housing authority type projects, or local action units. Those are your choices in terms of building it up. But other local actions that are very popular are if you have a zoning provision that allows a special permit or discretionary zoning, you can do it on a project by project basis, saying, can you put in some affordable units? That's fine. Conveyance of publicly owned land. We work with a lot of communities that are doing that. Similarly, conveyance of a publicly owned building. We've got schools in Bridgewater and, you know, that are being converted. And that's a whole process, but that would be considered a local action unit. So those would be eligible. And then using community preservation act also is a good tool for getting SHI units. I'm just putting this information, this is not my information, this is HLC information, but if you want to learn more about local action units, these are the go-to people. I can set that all up for you. And then I'm going to stop talking. So I appreciate your patience with this. It was a long one.
Katie,
Okay, stop.
Katie, this is Jackie again. I've been working with the trust for a little over a year now, and I think we're on the same page with a lot of things you've talked about. You know, we understand, I think, the distinction between 40B and local action units, but I think the crux of what we wanted to talk with you tonight about was that we've kind of gotten to the point where you've led us tonight locally with the trust's activities and the 5-year strategic plan. And now we really want to start having a productive conversation as part of our wider zoning bylaw review that Anna's going to be leading about making inclusionary units and the types. You know, you've shown us some examples. We've looked at some of those. We've looked at some others. I guess what we're trying to wrap our arms around is where you found success in communities specifically developing inclusionary zoning and the strategies that you've used to help develop them in a way that fits the feel of the community. Because I think we've heard a lot of what you've said tonight in our own research and our own work. The trust has worked really hard to get up to speed on this. Can you talk a little bit about success strategies you've seen communities have in terms of the public engagement and having it fit with the character of the community?
I know, I mean, I think it has to be done at a local level. I mean, I'm curious what you, I mean, I know you can say, well, we knew all that already, but, I mean,
So,
I think what's worked the best for communities your size, I'm gonna just tell you what I've seen works the best. It works best when you apply it to areas where you already allow slightly higher density. So do you have an area in town that allows multifamily with a special permit, say, or not even multifamily, like triplexes or smaller lots? That's where it would work.
so we have some areas like that, but most of them are fully developed. What I think this board and myself are struggling with is, in one of the slides you showed of the number of communities that have implemented inclusionary zoning, and then more than 60% of them have not brought any affordable units on board. And, what sticks out to me, and you called it out in the beginning, I mean, based on our zoning and the size of lots, today, a empty buildable lot in Middleton is worth about $625,000 to $650,000 of raw land. Now, that doesn't include, we're septic only. Not all, but some of our undeveloped areas require the drilling of wells because there's not public water everywhere in town. So $625,000, $650,000, that's for a raw lot that a significant amount of investment would have to be made before a nail is pounded. So my fear is that with inclusionary zoning, we're going to end up, sorry for the echo, we're going to end up with, we're going to be one of the 60% where we've done something and we're not getting units built. And to Costa's question, it may actually stifle development overall. Now, there may be some folks in town that want development to be stifled completely. However, the reality is, there's still buildable areas in town. So I think what you're kind of telling us, Katie, is that inclusionary zoning has to be done hand in hand with kind of taking a step back and looking at our overall zoning and finding those areas in town that may have some development left, and bringing down lot sizes or doing some innovation around open space, and then finding opportunities for us to partner that with either payment in lieu or tax incentives or other incentives. I mean, we have a large parcel of land that we own that we're at some point going to dispose of, that right now could probably be 16 plus or minus lots. I think that's an awesome opportunity to try to do something that would either be inclusionary or has in the requirement to sell some type of language that would create this. But my fear is that if we do this, we're going to be part of the 60%.
I mean, I agree with what you said. I mean, I think it will require a certain, I'm not judging your current zoning, but I mean, I think given the way your zoning is now, it's unlikely you'd get a lot of affordable units.
Yeah, I mean, and part of what brought us to where we are in zoning, I mean, at one point, we were the fastest school-age growing community in the state. We were seeing, in 1994, we had about 4,500 residents in town. Today, we have about 10,000. And a lot of that growth happened in mid to late 90s, and then again, mid to late 2000s, where we had two big surges of growth. And back,
I'm gonna share some.
yeah, and back when
Yeah.
they moved us, when we moved to a 1 acre and in some sections of town to a 2 acre, I mean, that was logically done to try to temper the speed of growth that was happening in the town, that as a town, in town government, we couldn't keep up with.
I'm trying to share. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you go on Data Town, it's showing pretty much exactly what you're saying, that the number of units, we have all sorts of fun facts on there that you can look up. Let's see,
Amy, what is that data?
it shows when did your community grow.
Okay.
I'm just showing you this as a useful tool, so renter burden, anyway. But the data is confirming exactly what you're saying, that we can see that here, that, you're building, you wanted to slow building, and you did. It slowed down dramatically in the 70s and going forward.
With some significant spikes after that, but still, yes. I understand a lot of that is geographically where we're located and so forth, but
In the last 5 years, we've averaged 12 new condos a year and 5 or 6 single-family homes. Total of about 17 or 18 new housing units. In the 90s, just single-family homes were 60 to 90 a year. And that's what led to my question about if we slow down, if we pass too much cost onto the private developer through inclusionary zoning, we won't get any new housing units. So we have to be careful as to what those requirements are. And the final piece is that most of the remaining large parcels of undeveloped residentially zoned land are owned by one of two families.
and most of it's chapter land. Yep.
And we had a big thing in the mid-2000s where the development for single-family homes in Middleton was astronomical. I mean, I was a plumber for 20 years, and I didn't leave Middleton. I didn't go more than a minute from my house for 6 years, building plumbing houses. It was just astronomical of how many houses were built in the mid-2000s in Middleton.
How's your school population now?
So
and they
our
weren't
school population is pretty steady now, but we've had over the last, well, I'm looking at Costa, there's probably nobody in town that has a better picture of our school population, but it's, over the last 7 years, it's been on a decline.
Masco went down to 600 in the last 10 years.
We've,
Well, that was the bulge that was coming through elementary.
it's been fairly steady at about 1,200 between the elementary, Masco, and Essex Tech. There hasn't, been, in the last 10 years, the elementaries have increased by 50 students over a 10-year period. Masco has decreased, our Middleton portion, but our total is still about 1,200 because it increases one place, decreases in the other. It's been fairly steady.
Right.
Before we built the Howe Manning School, it was a lot higher than it is now at both the elementary and at Masco.
Yeah, so you're, like most towns in Massachusetts, and I'm one of them, we're getting older here, and our number of school children, our population is aging for sure, statewide. So that's kind of interesting. But I'm just trying to get to some place where you have some undeveloped parcels of land.
The largest percentage of undeveloped land is chapter farmland right now, really owned by two families. Part of the Affordable Housing Trust is taking a longer look at, what is going to potentially happen in the future with that land. And if there are things that we should be thinking about today, as well as thinking about in the future for that. But I would say the remaining portion of the undeveloped land is not very large. We also have a lot of wetlands in town that are just completely unbuildable.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, I think just to answer the first speaker's question, in terms of strategies, given the zoning you have, I think the chairman nailed it, which is that you really are gonna have to look at your zoning and create an area where some production could occur. I don't think having single family, well, first of all, this whole issue with subdivisions, inclusionary zoning, it's not just being challenged, it's pretty much been ruled illegal, because Subdivision Control Act is entirely outside of zoning. It's not part of 40A. So, and all Subdivision Control Act does is creates lots, it doesn't create homes. So you can't necessarily say in a subdivision, 10% of them have to be affordable, because all you're doing when you subdivide land is creating lots, right? Anyway, I'm not a lawyer, but, in terms of single-family homes, so, I mean, I think areas where you're maybe permitting other types of development and then also conceivably less expensive types of development, I mean, it's really the only answer. And then applying the affordability restriction to that. And it doesn't have to be your whole town, right? It can be a district you deem suitable for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this committee, we need to kind of take an inventory of not just our current zoning, but look at different areas around town and identify where those pockets are that development is still able to occur, and if there are things that we can do within those areas that would have a positive effect.
And where you want it to occur, right?
Here's a quick question. I apologize if it sounds dumb. We are paying the same rates for homes as well as businesses. If there's business zoning that is not being built on and nobody's showing an interest, could we rezone it for residential and build affordable units in those areas which were previously zoned for businesses but nobody wants?
So, I mean, I guess technically you could. I would be concerned about what is already there, and if you take a business and you grandfather them in, they're always going to be, due to a zoning change, they're always going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, non-conforming. And that would probably have a future negative effect on the value of the property. Secondly, it's...
No, it wouldn't.
You don't think so?
No.
And then-
I also think you could do your zoning so you allowed both. I mean, I think,
Well, mixed use is,
We have
mixed
mixed
use,
use.
and I will tell you, there's been, I'm not speaking for this board, but I'm saying in the town, I think there's been a lack of an appetite by folks to actually move into some type of mixed-use zoning and development. I love the idea. We don't have a downtown. We're trying to cobble one together. We have a new municipal complex, which is going to kind of be the heart of where our government activity will be. But we have a downtown that really is not like a typical New England downtown. And there are a lot of buildings around the downtown. I look at the example as the building next to the fire station that has been effectively vacant for the last 10 years, that is zoned business, that would that be an attractive area right in the center of town to actually change some of the zoning? I know some of the homes that are after that are actually still business zoned.
Yep.
And at one point, there was some action at town meeting that ended up getting pulled to change some zoning there. Now, but what that's going to bring is, it's not going to bring a small building with 3 lots. It's going to bring a building with 10, 12, 15 lots, and Katie, we're going through a friendly 40B that has just been approved within the center of our town, that if I'd say it caused some angst in town, I'd be probably understating the effort. I think in the end, it's,
I get it, no, I know the project. They actually came to us for subsidizing, and then they ended up going over to mass housing. And, yeah, I mean, I think it's partially, and that, you know, I don't want to sound all judgy, but that is one of the reasons housing's so expensive in Massachusetts. People, I mean, I want to say one thing about mixed use. I think that I'm not talking about like build the downtown metropolis. I'm just saying the idea that uses had to be separated, I think is something we need, you know, I think that was a time when we had tanneries and literally toxic uses. You didn't want homes near there. If it's a small office building, no one's going to get hurt living near there. You know, they may, you know, I guess I think it's something that many communities are kind of starting to think a little bit about. It's not like it's not tainted, it's just a different kind of use, and it happens to be near your house. And, you know, to keep an open mind. The suggestion, many towns are, I've noticed lots of towns very ambitiously created these industrial zones. There's no industry here, right? And so there's all this land that is zoned industrial that's empty that some communities are looking to.
I think we have cars parked on.
That's too bad about the friendly
Like the
40B,
industrial areas
because
are mostly
is it a friendly 40B?
Friendly now.
yeah, it's friendly now. I mean, we've gone through that process. We,
Started at
Did
200.
the
that was
selectmen
problem.
sign off on
yes.
it?
Yeah. It went from 200 to,
That is a good tool to get the kind of, you know, if there's an empty parcel, if you're really just concerned with building up your subsidized housing inventory and providing a diversity of housing, the LIP 40B program is a good tool.
No, I mean, I
Be
think that's,
easier than passing zoning.
no, I agree. It may, you're absolutely right. It may be easier than passing zoning, but, I mean, I think,
Right.
you know, it's not just bringing the mix of affordability to the town, which there's really not. I mean, Costa has mentioned there's been a large number of condos that have been built, but they're not affordable condos. There's been a few that have been interspersed into 55 and older developments, but, I mean, the last big round of condos that were built sold for between $1 and $1.2 million.
Well, right, and your house is probably worth that much too.
Yeah, well, I,
I mean, that's.
no, and you're right, and the problem is, it's difficult for folks to downsize in this community. It's difficult for folks' children to stay in this community, and it's getting very difficult for a lot of older folks in this community to remain here.
Right.
And yeah, they're sitting on a very well-priced property,
but where do you
but
go?
where are they gonna go? And so,
To a lateral condo for $1 million.
And this is, we have a lot of evidence that any housing you build helps make housing affordable, is that we have a strong supply problem, that even expensive housing brings the housing prices down. What it doesn't do is protect us against 40Bs.
yeah.
So if we want to do that, we need, like, I like that idea of like, what would, if we dreamed up our ideal 40B, what would that look like? And is that profitable for someone to build?
Town hall.
I mean, we've got some options ahead of us, Katie. I mean, we're building a brand-new municipal complex, and part of that is going to be the current town hall, which is the former high school from a long time ago. Very smaller building, but right in the center of town, is an option of the town doing something affordable there as a redevelopment. There's some property on the other side of town that was originally going to be utilized for a school, that the school was built elsewhere. The town meeting has given approval for the disposition of that property, but my board, the select board, is giving some thought about what we want to do with that if we do dispose of it, and if there is an affordable or a different type of development that could go there that would help solve small numbers, but help solve some of the housing issues. what I've talked about in the center of town. You know the building I'm talking about, in the homes that are after that. There's an empty lot across the street that at one point this town took by eminent domain that sits as a parking lot that I don't think has ever been more than one or two cars that have ever sat in it. You know, there's parcels in town, and I think this board needs to, and Anna, with your help, is start to inventory this. And I think we should really think about that before it's taking a big step into, let's take an inclusionary zoning layer and layer it over this area or make it town-wide. Because I think if we build it, they won't come. And our best alternative is if developer is going to say, well, I'm willing to build, but here's a small payment in lieu that I'll give you to allow me to do what I wanted to do here. And I don't think that's, yeah, the Affordable Housing Trust may be the beneficiary of that, but we still have the issue of nowhere to build.
And the thing that sounds most promising is if there's projects that aren't currently being built here because of some of our restrictions, that are things we'd be willing to waive if there was an affordable component and it helped us protect ourselves against 40Bs. Where if there was a way that we could lower some of the barriers to building in exchange for, because those projects were bringing in affordable housing, we could possibly increase the opportunities for building and also get affordable housing out of it. But I think building a coalition to pass a zoning law like that is going to be pretty hard.
And you just remember the limiting
Yeah.
factor of sewer. We have no sewer. You know, the 40B went from 200 units to 60 units because
Of a lack of
it didn't
sewage.
have enough septic capacity on that land. So whatever parcel is identified as a good place to build some affordable units is going to be, the amount is going to be restricted by the septic capacity of that land.
It's gonna be choked out, basically.
Any other questions?
Well, not to bring up a sensitive topic, but, you know, your MBTA Communities District is the tool you could do to do your rezoning.
Katie, I'm gonna stop you right
Katie,
now.
that-
We're not gonna do it tonight.
When you say
Did that last
sensitive,
night.
that was,
Voted down
That's
no.
more than sensitive, that's cutting off somebody's arm.
Voted down
I
twice.
can hear you.
Voted down
it
twice.
was voted down twice by town meeting. There's-
Done.
This is, yeah, that ship has sailed.
Well, until the lawsuit.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And, well, I won't even go down that road. So what I'd ask, Katie, is if you could, the presentation that you provided on the screen today, could you send that over to us so we could have a hard copy of it?
You bet.
Thank you very
You
much.
bet. And I sent Anna some other material.
Yeah.
I don't think, you know, MHP probably doesn't have, we're not gonna be able to jump in and do your master planning and stuff, but anything I can do to help, kind of help you move this forward. Certainly, and I'll stop in, I know we're over time. If you guys do get to a point where you wanna redevelop municipal land or whatever, that is kind of our, that's our expertise. So, you know, if there's a municipal parcel, I have a couple colleagues that are really good at helping communities kind of get through that part, that problem.
I would tell you that would be very helpful because.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we had a small consulting grant that we received from Mass Development, where a consultant came in and helped us kind of like vision what we wanted to do there with community input. And all roads kept coming back to some type of housing with some affordability component there.
Excellent.
But I think what we're kind of struggling with is, like, what is that next step? What does that look like? What do we have to do to make that a reality? And that's where I think this Affordable Housing Trust can help lead in and support the Select Board and the administration and what they're doing around there. Secondly, you had mentioned that there's a list of communities that have had payment in lieu of programs, and I know you said it's kind of like one size, you've seen one. It's different for every community. Do you have a list you could provide to us so we could look at like similar sized and made communities?
No,
I thought you said you had a list.
no,
You mentioned.
no, I have a sampling of payment in lieu amounts.
Okay,
But they're not relevant.
I can send you the findings from the statewide inclusionary zoning survey, so you can see every municipality that has inclusionary zoning.
okay, that would be helpful. Thank you.
But it's a little bit out of date. It's from 2020. We're not tracking it. I wish the state would track it, but they don't. We're not actually the state.
Okay,
And the other one was a data town?
But I can send you that, the list of like, communities in your area that have inclusionary zoning.
okay. Thank you for that.
And their bylaws get updated all the time, but it's super easy to find them. You literally just Google their town bylaw and you can find it in there.
Okay. Any other questions from members or attendees this evening? So Katie, I want to say thank you very much on behalf of the town for spending some time with us this evening. This was helpful.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah, you guys are such a great group.
Oh, thanks.
You ask really good questions.
I appreciate that. Okay. Katie, have a good evening.
Okay, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Amy, she didn't say like where her background or anything. Is she, works for the state, she's a consultant? I didn't really get that.
She works for Mass Housing Partnership, which is kind of the,
It's a quasi-governmental. It's a nonprofit, but they actually, on behalf of the Commonwealth, do some lending and funding for projects around affordability.
So we paid a fee for her to be here, or is that part of the state provides that at no
yeah,
cost?
it's, they provide technical assistance to communities at no cost.
You're always wondering about
Actually,
finances, Costa.
Okay, so let's roll back into our agenda, but actually, before I get to that, I think it would be helpful if we could, the presentation that she provided, she's going to send back if
Yeah.
we could distribute it amongst the board and make sure that the other boards that are somewhat represented here today, master plan, zoning, and others, if they could get that as well. Secondly, I'd welcome everybody to take some time and look at what she had talked about, both the Data Town website, but also the ability to look at some of the payment in lieu. I don't think the payment in lieu is going to be any type of successful process for us right now until we get our arms around any type of inclusionary ability of where it would work and where it wouldn't. And I think maybe some homework for our board is to kind of start taking a look at, with your help, Amy, Anna, of small areas in town that we could look at to see if what it would look like if we did anything either inclusionary and/or like what we were talking about at the end around current business zoned and bringing in some housing component to it. Again, I go back to those parcels that I think of right off the center of town.
What about like when the safety building gets built, the municipality building, like where the police station is now?
Yeah, so the police, I mean, the logical thing that we've started, my board has started to talk about is the 4 parcels that are now going to be vacant. The fire department parcel, which is sitting literally on the grounds of the library.
Right.
The police station, which is a small lot surrounded by what is likely at some point in the future, we would all agree is probably going to be redeveloped. We have the old town hall, which is the current Council on Aging Senior Center, which is a very small lot in a building that needs a significant amount of work. And then the big jewel in the picture, which is Memorial Hall, which both has Memorial Hall, the land, and all of that behind it.
Right.
And our board is starting to, we had a consultant that supported us envisioning around Memorial Hall, but we, at some point, I think my board is gonna start taking a much deeper look at what we're gonna do with those, and I think every parcel is gonna be treated differently. I don't think they're all parcels we would wanna sell and/or redevelop.
No.
I mean, I think, my opinion is the fire station probably should be torn down, and that footprint used for both green space and what is greatly lacking at the library, which is parking. I granted, some of the parking spaces are gonna open up because firefighters aren't parking there now, but there's a significant shortage of parking there, and I'm not sure how that building would ever be able to be used in something that would make sense in the footprint there.
Right.
The police station, let's be honest, we got it from $1 from the town of Danvers, and then we added old trailers off the side of it, and really got us several more years. The logical is that lot's probably gonna be sold. I think as a board, we need to talk about what conditions, if at all, we would wanna put on that sale, i.e., understanding it's probably gonna be parceled together into a bigger piece that will be developed in the future. Do we wanna put some type of affordability language in there? I think that's, but how it's zoned and what it's zoned for now is not something that would be conducive to that. I think the old town hall, that's a really tricky one because it's so small.
The COA one?
Yeah. I think the opportunity for the town to do something that could potentially be housing and affordable is Memorial Hall. But we're not there yet in the board, and we're not going to do it in a vacuum. I mean, I think this board will be invited to provide input on that. Obviously, the townspeople will as well, abutters and the rest. And then on Locust Street, you know, my board has talked about the possibility of issuing an RFI to see what appetite is out there of both builders, not-for-profits, and others to do something different up there. We've talked about, well, what if we sold it with a requirement that buildings could only be a certain size? Would that bring some affordability in, knowing that maybe we wouldn't get the same amount for the sale? And, you know, if there's something that's gonna be zoning, it's gonna have to be part of the comprehensive assessment that Anna and the rest of the boards that are
How
involved.
much
in
acreage
this.
is up there, Brian?
How many acres are up at the Locust Street?
About 17 and a half.
It's probably about, as it sits now, probably about 14, 13 homes to be built
Could be
there.
built there, yeah, that's right.
Not so much.
Can I ask a historical question? Because I know you've mentioned in the zoning discussion that there hadn't been a lot of appetite for mixed use. Had there been zoning changes, like proposing village zoning somewhere in town or something brought that failed, or just we haven't heard people?
So my experience is our former planning director had been talking about village zoning in different areas, but that was all happening at the same time when there was zero appetite at town meeting to even take up a zoning issue. I mean,
Okay.
that's always an option as well, but,
I think we've talked about, because in the very beginning of our board, about the similar, with the Boxford Village style, remember we talked about that right in the beginning?
Yeah, and
That might be more, people might be more open to that style.
yeah, especially the ones
Then
that are.
blends, you know?
It blends and it gives opportunities for people to own building and house in the same place and run the shops.
Well, not even shops, that one in Boxford is just homes.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, there's no commercial or
Yeah.
retail space in those clustered,
Oh, yeah, you're right, yeah, that one.
but
Yeah.
not, that's another option too. But the
Yeah.
one in Boxford isn't retail.
so my thought is, at this point, I mean, inclusionary zoning is interesting. I just don't know if that's gonna be a significant tool in our toolbox yet. I think zoning changes.
I wouldn't think so.
Or zoning reviews and finding opportunities to bring that in. It may be part of the mix, but I think as our zoning sits today, we're gonna be part of the 60%. We'll have it, it won't be utilized. To Costa's point, it may just completely bring building to a complete stop.
Advantageous, to identify potential parcels, that could be developed in a way that enhances different objectives of the town, and then engage with that property owner to see if that can be brought about. There's a parcel on North Main Street that has been not unused for many, many years. And there's, there's a derelict building on it at this point because the building hasn't been used. And there are other opportunities that perhaps the town government can help facilitate something that is advantageous both to the property owner, to the community, and meet different objectives, like having more affordable housing.
Do we know what the vacancy rate is, Tom?
Of commercial space?
Or residential? Or was the plot you were talking about?
The plot he's talking about is the former Candlelight Motel,
Oh, right, okay.
and the buildings that are behind it.
But no one wants to talk about that. I think it'd be a perfect affordable housing spot, but people have some real prejudice towards the previous owner.
There's also a spot right on North Main Street, right before the Dave's Liquors property, right in
Pollock's.
front of EJP.
The Pollocks.
Parks.
Oh, not the piece that's being
Not the
developed
piece
now.
that's being developed, the
The
other
other
one
piece.
with the
The
house
Pollocks,
is there too. That's
right?
another
Pollock
parcel
family.
there also.
Yep. So, I mean, I know a lot of that work you're starting to do in terms of looking at zoning, and some of that is inventorying. But I think we keep inclusionary zoning in our mindset, but it's not gonna be the magic pill that's gonna somehow bring developers in. They're gonna say, love to put in a development. And I think the point that she stated, which was very clear to me, and I didn't think about it until it came to this, is the bulk of the development that's happening in town is single-family homes. In a subdivision, single-family home, our ability to put inclusionary in there is probably going to be subject to litigation, is what she's saying, and is likely at some point going to be deemed
Absolutely.
improbable.
And there hasn't been a lot of single-family development in the last 10 years.
No, I mean, the biggest development that's happened in the 10 years is the old JCC and down there off of East Street, and then
East Meadows.
the tennis
Tennis.
facility off of
River.
River Street.
Those are huge.
Yeah. Okay, back to our agenda. We've got, you have in your packet this evening, folks, minutes from our December 4th, 2024, as well as our January 8th, 2025. Our clerk extraordinaire has reviewed these and agreed with them. I don't know if there are any comments on these.
January 8th, I wasn't there, so I can't certify the January the 8th one. I couldn't make that meeting.
Mr.
But I
Chairman.
have certified.
You don't have
the
to
I'll make a
be there
motion
to
to approve
certify.
December 4th and January 8th minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
I second
Is there-
that
There is a second.
for both, he said.
Okay, any conversation? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Okay, that passes unanimously. I don't really think, my opinion, is there anything really to work on in a five-year action plan? I actually think the one piece that we do have is what we've talked about this evening. While the other pieces are happening, and I know Jackie's not in the room at the time, but some interesting activities that are happening up at Memorial Hall around pieces that will involve us. One of the things I just recently learned is our fire chief and our council on aging are, the two departments are working together to offer, coming in the very near future, the ability for the fire department to come visit homes and do assessments, and not just, do you have your smoke detectors and your carbon monoxide detectors and things that can be done, but I think it's an opportunity that the fire department and the council on aging together can kind of be the eyes and ears to help identify individuals in town that may be able to be supported by the effort that we're trying to get off the ground here of changes that may be able to assist individuals to stay in their home and continue to age in place or remain in this town.
That's great.
Jackie said that process is moving, and probably at our next meeting, we're going to have a lot more information to talk about on efforts that as well as efforts that her and Anna have been doing, working with a lot of our departments in town to find out how they could actually lean in with us on that. So there'll be more to come on that. But the only piece in the 5-year action plan, I'd really like to see if we could work to kind of inventory some of the parcels that we've talked about this evening. And I think that'll probably be helpful to you as you're moving into some zoning pieces. But I just want to caution everybody, I mean, we're going to be moving into a phase as a town of, not this May town meeting, but at the following May town meeting, starting to talk about zoning changes. And we're going to have to temper this in the right amount, the right time, and the right decisions to bring to town meeting, or we will potentially enter another phase of being able to not talk about zoning at all because there will be no appetite. And I think our board's role in that has to be about continuing to, and not that Anna and others aren't going to bring that to the table, but our role is to continue to talk to the public about the need for affordability in this town. And, not to bring up the elephant in the room, but at least on the issue that happened at town meeting twice over the MBTA zoning, what I didn't hear is anybody say, we have too much zoning, we have too much housing in this town, and we have just the right amount and the right type of housing. I don't think there's anybody in town that would agree with that. Surely on the affordable front, we have a problem. And there's a reason why a 40B came to our door. And we may get a short period of safe harbor because of the 40B project, but it's not going to last forever. And if we don't get ahead of it, and this is where our board has to lean in. So I will work with Anna to kind of at least get some materials that we can share with the board, for we can, as a board, start talking about what
Someone's on the roof.
parcels we can start identifying that we may want to, as a board, ID, and to start having conversations with owners of those properties, neighborhoods, and others. I think to get ahead of that before we start talking about zoning is probably the right step to take. Any other ideas or comments?
No.
Mr. Treasurer, any updates you have for us?
No, I just realized I hadn't got the December's report, so next week I should get December and January and have it for the next meeting.
Okay. We are scheduled now for March 5th. Thank you for everybody this evening being amenable to starting at 5. It worked for Katie's schedule. I appreciate folks being here. We will return to our 6 PM hour on March 5th, and we are scheduled
Yep.
in this room.
I have one other scheduling note.
Yep.
MAPC has a North Shore Task Force, and their February meeting is going to be a presentation with Harbor Light and Essex County Habitat for Humanity. So they did invite any members of the trust if you all want to join. It's in person in Rockport, I believe, and on Zoom. So I'll send the link out following the meeting, but just
What is
wanted.
that, February what?
February 20th, and it's in the morning, 9:30 to 11.
You'll send us something though, Amy?
Yeah, I'll send you the link,
Like a link.
the notice about
Harbor
it.
Light and Habitat?
Harbor Light and Habitat, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other members have any other topics? No. Yes?
Can I make a brief announcement?
You're not a member.
Please spread the word that all town offices will be closed tomorrow due to inclement weather, just so now it's on
Already?
cable channel 2. No, well, the school's already called it, and we've just called it as well, so town offices will be closed tomorrow due to inclement weather.
It's not gonna start till like noon or something.
It's gonna start in the morning commute and go till the evening commute.
Oh, it's changing
It
again?
just changed dramatically, so.
Don't have such a big smile on your face, Jackie. Jackie, you're like, it's closed.
Yeah, but she still has to, she's got
not
a
a snow
computer,
day.
she's still got to work from home.
This is just, look at the file, it's just still coming with me.
I'm just saying, the smile on your
It's to do
face
with
is
my
like,
So
own
mean.
it's like a
technology
little
instead of-
kid when school's up.
Computers have ruined everything.
Computers ruined everything,
So
everybody
you're
still
not
has to
going
work from
sledding
home.
tomorrow?
Don't
Okay.
get snow days anymore.
Well, I'll have to work from home
I
tomorrow,
would
too.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
So we're adjourned. Thank you.